This week on the No More Late Fees podcast, Danielle and I are joined by journalist and author Andrew Buss. Andrew has written for publications like Vanity Fair, Consequence of Sound, The Laugh Button, Vulture, and has just released his new book, Top 5, How High Fidelity Found Its Rhythm and Became a Cult Movie Classic. His new book about the 1997 film High Fidelity features interviews with Jack Black, Stephen Frears, Todd Louiso, Sara Gilbert,
DeVincentis, yes. One of my favorite names to say.
DeVincentis. It rolls off the tongue.
It does. Steve Pink, Nick Hornby, Fred Armisen, and more. And there is a quote that Danielle specifically said I could say because it is from my favorite director, Kevin Smith, that he says, Andrew Buss penned a companion book that's so well researched and written that it made me rewatch High Fidelity and appreciate it through a new lens. A must-have tome for any movie buff. So welcome, Andrew.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Yes, we'll talk a lot about High Fidelity, and anything you want to talk about Kevin Smith, that's also my second wheelhouse. So
Okay, excellent.
there you go. Because Kevin's talking about, I can talk about it. I am working on a project with him, so we can definitely talk about that at some point if you'd like.
I like that a lot, Andrew, because now what you just said to us is we are also friends with Kevin Smith because we are friends with you now. And
yeah, there you go.
The door is just open. Thank you.
There you go. Yes, he's a great guy.
We like to live in the Delulu. So.
We do. Like, it's my dream to be like, hey, Kevin, you don't have any female podcasts on the SMOD network. So what can we do to fix that?
Here we are. Fun fact that we love to throw out whenever we can, but Jay follows us on Instagram, and I just, again, feel like that means that we're friends.
Of course.
Right?
No, absolutely. That's there's so much about that I love. When occasionally I'll get things like that on my Twitter, like people I don't know. Like the other day, I was going through my notifications and I saw that Craig Ferguson retweeted something that I retweeted. So I didn't do the post, but he retweeted my version of the post, and I don't know how he got to my profile. So
it's
I
good
have
enough.
no idea how that happened. It is. It's a great feeling.
It's still your tweet.
Yes.
Yeah,
whatever.
Technically, yes. Well, he was on my profile, so I'll take it.
Yeah. A win is a win.
All the time.
Well, we're really excited that you're here because obviously you love nostalgia as much as we do. You know that we used to work at Blockbuster, so that's like our shtick. And we're really excited because eventually High Fidelity is going to definitely come around for us to cover on the podcast. So your book is like good research for us to shout out when we do the episodes. Yes. So very exciting. But before we dive into the book, we'd just love to hear like how your writing began, your love of pop culture, movies. Where did that all start?
Absolutely. Well, the love of pop culture and movies, it definitely started. I never worked in a video store. It was something I always wanted to do. And then right when I was kind of getting to the age of being able to, right when I was around 16, 17, the mom and pop store right by my house, 3 blocks away, closed down. But I spent enough time there that my face was on the wall and not like a don't admit kind of thing. But it was instead like family video. And I was part of their family. And yeah, I would just ride my bike there when I was a kid, like 6, 7 years old, and just go in there and rent whatever movies I could find. A lot of comedies, I was a theater kid, a lot of musicals growing up, but comedies were the big one for me. And yeah, I love that environment so much. And so much of who I am is because of spending so much time just visiting the video store, like, scrounging up any change I could to go rent some movies. So
isn't it so sad that kids can't like
It is.
enjoy that. I think we took it for granted when it was happening during our time period, but just to know that they don't have that like safe haven to, like you said, ride your bike to go
Yeah.
get movies, you know?
It was so much fun. I liked the not knowing, which yes, you can not know what you're gonna watch on Netflix, but it's not as much fun as looking and being like, oh my God, they have this movie? I've never even heard of this.
Right.
I mean, it's just there's something about being able to hold it like physical media. That's a big thing, and
Mm.
it should surprise nobody that I'm a big physical media fan, having written a book about a whole movie that is guys that are obsessed with physical media. But yeah, I mean, and then just my love of pop culture. I went to film school, but then at a certain point, I just found my way into journalism, and I had a great mentor, a guy named Bill Zamy, and he took me under his wing, and I was able to learn from the best. And eventually, after 6 7 years, here we are. I feel like it's getting traction, and I'm so happy that I now have author in front of my name. Like when you said journalist and author, I'm like, I have to get used to that. So
Aw. That's amazing. That is really, really cool that you've been able to kind of, not a lot of people can take their passion and turn it into a career. And sometimes I think a lot of people feel like they have to. It doesn't always work that way, but when you can and when you see it happens, it's really nice.
thank you.
But I have to ask the question, why High Fidelity?
I'd written the oral history. It started as an oral history for Consequence of Sound back in 2020. And when I did the oral history, I just felt like everything was right about it. Everything just fit perfectly, not only my sensibilities, but it just felt like a really well done piece. It was something I was proud of and could stand proudly beside. And it felt complete. It felt like I got everybody I needed to get. And it didn't feel like any element was missing. And so when I got an agent a couple of years ago, he had asked me, so what do you want to do? And I said, I'd like to do a book on, there were two books and that we had discussed, and one was High Fidelity, and that was the one that I got to do. And
Nice.
it was so great to just dive into this world and explore it. And also, I'm from the Illinois suburbs, so to get to write about Chicago so much, a city I spent a lot of time in college, and just anytime I wanted to escape the boringness of the suburbs, it was just great. I got to write, I got kind of a love letter to Chicago in the middle of my book, so it was amazing.
Well, we personally loved Chicago here
did.
on this show. So gotta give props to that. Did you read the book before you saw the movie, or was this no?
It was
Okay.
movie first and then the book. And movie was around the time that I was in film school. I mean, just there, going to school in Chicago, of course, if there's a movie, that takes place in the city, it kind of moves up on the list of what I want to watch. And yeah, I mean, and there's so much in the movie, like things that I recognize. Like for instance, there's a moment when they're in a movie theater that's a music box theater. That's a movie theater that every film nerd knows and reveres in Chicago, and that's one that I spent a lot of time at myself.
Why do you think the movie resonates with so many people, even today?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with just the idea that I think it's the pop culture aspect. It's not even just music. The book had a lot more, I think, movies and books. There was a lot more focus on pop culture than the movie, but there's a lot more room in a book for than you have in a 90-minute movie. There's something about the movie that I just think speaks to everybody, because we've all been in relationships. We don't deal with it the way Rob does. If something doesn't go the way I hope. Rob is such an extreme, but he's supposed to be a flawed character. And that's something I really wanted to make known in the book. But yeah, I just felt like everybody, has loved something as much as these guys love music. Everybody has also been in relationships and had that question of, well, what happened? What could have been different? And everyone has, been in a relationship and in love. And I feel like all of those components are part of what makes High Fidelity what it is.
I think the physical media part of it, I think that's really
Yeah,
sitting with a lot of people even now more than
of
anything.
course.
And it just was like a perfect storm too, right? Like the actors in this movie were amazing and funny. Their chemistry was great. And I think just the premise of like, who doesn't want to ask their exes what the heck happened or how you
Yes.
can
Yeah.
improve? Like, no one's brave enough to really do it because, like, you might get some things you don't really want to hear.
Yeah, it's Pandora's box. You don't really want to open it, but you're so tempted. It's like a kid being told not to touch the stove, and that just makes the kid want to touch the stove more. Like society tells us not to ask questions, to just move on, but it's like, but really, what was it? Like,
Right.
it just it everyone's got that internal feeling of I need to know more. And it's just, at a certain people, like in Rob's case, just become addicted to that idea of was it me? And he just, took it way too far. But that's part of the character, and that's part of, I think the fact that he is so flawed and he is learning, I think that's part of the charm of that character. And I don't think anyone could have played it but John Cusack, because you needed someone that could be effortlessly charming to make a character like Rob that likable.
Very true. Uh, when you decided to do the oral history and you started to have to reach out to everyone who was a part of the production, what was that process like? Did you have any hurdles that you had to overcome to get the people you wanted to talk to, or was it seamless?
Oh yeah, there were definitely hurdles. I remember Nick was the first one on board. I sent him an email, and within, I would say, 5 minutes, I got an email back that just said, "I'm here, Nick Hornby." And
Nice.
I'm like, okay, I guess
That's
that means yes.
awesome.
Okay, thanks. And then we set up the interview. But Stephen Frears came on board shortly after that. John Cusack took a little kind of back and forth, but he came on board. Todd Louiso came on board, but Jack was one that just it wasn't going to happen. As people had said, he is really busy at this point, and he was about to tour Europe with Tenacious D. So the
Mm.
timing just couldn't have been worse. But so I set up my interview with Todd, and I get on the phone with Todd, and Todd says, "Oh, by the way, we're on the phone with Jack." And so Todd decided to ambush me, a delightful ambush, but an ambush nonetheless. And I all of a sudden had to switch gears into interviewing Jack Black without any notice whatsoever. And
Oh
that
my
was kind of
gosh.
fun. There's adrenaline with that. Like, okay, this is a challenge. Let's do it. Like, my body's not ready for this. And, Jack couldn't be nicer. And then when I did the book, I got to talk to him again. And we had another nice 40-minute conversation. And then I asked him his top 5 albums. And about a week later, I get an email that says, "Jack wants to talk to you again." And I'm like, okay. So he gets on the phone and he says, "I've been thinking about it. I think I've nailed my top 5." And I'm like, "Have you been thinking about it for a week?" He said, "Yes." I'm like,
Oh,
all right, let's do
wow.
it.
Love
But
it.
no, that was so the biggest hurdle was just getting everybody. I mean, everybody was just game. Like it was so much fun. It really was.
I'm surprised he didn't have his top 5 because I'm thinking during the movie, wouldn't you have been thinking about what your top 5 would have been when he
Yeah,
was
but it had
making?
also been about 23 years, I
That's
think,
true.
22
He's changing.
years. Yeah, and it changes. Like everybody's taste kind of changes. Like if you had asked me what my top 5 was 10 years ago, it would be different than what it is right now because we're always discovering new things or reevaluating things in a new light. Like, you know what? This thing that I didn't like that much 10 years ago, the more I look at it, the more I watch it or listen to it, I can't get enough. So I think that's also part of it. And top 5 list can change at any time. Like you know, it's an all-time top 5 list, but you can always, the more you think about it, you can overanalyze and be like,
Yeah.
no, I like this one more.
Very, very true. And we definitely understand that because when we do the podcast, we think we love a movie before we rewatch it and we're like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Some
I have had
time.
that so many times.
Time and education has not been kind to this movie.
And then sometimes you throw caution
Right.
to the wind and you're like, I don't care. I don't care how bad it is. I still love this movie.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I've come across that so many times, and there's been and it's the same with writing. It's the same with anything. Like,
Mhm.
I look back at some of my early writing, and I'm like, this wasn't good. Why did I do this? Like, it's always going to happen. I'm going to look back at this book and want to do something differently. It's inevitable.
What do you think was the most surprising thing that you learned when you were writing this book about the movie and yourself?
One of the ones that really stuck out was the whole fact that Jack turned down the movie repeatedly. Like, they had offered him the part, and the part was perfect for him. Everything about it's perfect, and he just didn't want to do it. And they couldn't figure out why, and he was nervous. Like, this person who's so larger than life on screen, and we think of him as being someone that just has this confidence and arrogance that just cannot be taken down. Like, we think of him as just being with, I'm going to use the word tenacity, but it's not only a pun, but it's true. Like, he really has this larger than life feel when you watch him. It's miraculous. He's such a great, gifted performer, but he is also a very introverted and shy kind of person. And I got to learn that while working on the book. Like, that's what it was. He didn't know if he could do it. So what he did is he made them audition him after they gave him the part, because he felt an audition would prove it to himself. So he's like, let me audition. And they're like, you've got the part. He's like, I want to prove it. And they're like, okay. He didn't, Stephen told me, he's like, so he auditioned, not very well. Stephen did not think his audition was great, but he said, obviously, we knew he was right for the part. So after months of, like, a month or two of back and forth, he finally did it. And that was fascinating to learn, that how close someone is to their life changing and not realizing it. Like, had they not pushed back, had they just gone to someone else, his life, would be incredibly different, because that movie broke him. That was interesting. And then what I learned about myself, I would say, is that I didn't realize what it takes to write a book. And I think it's one of those things that there's no school. Like, you can read as many articles as you want, how to write a perfect book, but I wouldn't really read those articles. I would just, okay, I have to write a book now. Like, I didn't really do much else, have too much else to think about other than, let me just do it. Let me get it done on time. And, I would turn to books that I like, other pop culture books, to try to figure out, well, what can I do? What did they do? And how can I bring my own kind of spin on that? And it's always evolving. I'm working on a new book right now that I think is even better than Top 5, because I learned so many things while working on Top 5 that I can now bring to the new book. And dedication to writing a book is hard, though. Like, that's the most challenging thing, is writing it. I mean, having a deadline and having them give you an advance helps, because you're kind of tied in at that point. Like, the money's gone by the time I have to turn the book in. So
so what advice would you give to aspiring writers and creators to get to that space?
It's just the work. And I hate to say it, and I don't like that this model is part of it, but it is something that I had to do, which is, I never went to school for journalism, but what I did do is, when I switched gears, I realized early on, well, I have to write for free. And I don't like that. I don't like advertising that. But I think it's part of, until things change, and I do wish it was different. I do wish that there were more opportunities for people to get compensated for their work right out the gate. Unfortunately, that's not a reality. And it just took years of me having to have so many other jobs writing on the side until I felt like, well, my full profession is writing. And it only took the last couple of years before I could feel that way. And my advice would be okay with that. Be okay with having other jobs, with having to juggle plates. And I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed about having to work your way up. And I was so ashamed. I was like, I can't let people know I have other jobs. So if I was working during a time that I had to do an interview, and I would just tell the publicist or agent that I had to go to the doctor. I had so many doctor's appointments because I was too ashamed to admit that I was working in a restaurant. And reality is I was. And I mean, I was up until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are used to that for actors, but don't realize that that is very true for anybody in the
Yes.
creative space, you know?
And there's no shame in it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I do feel like for so many of us, even like for us doing the podcast or being creators and on the outside, it seems like you guys are doing so well. And it's like, yeah, but we do this for free. Like, you know, like
Actually, we pay to do this at
we
this
pay
point.
we pay to do this. And
I'll tell you,
yeah.
I love that though, because that shows how much you enjoy doing it, because there's so many things that I love to do that I do for free, like that I would do for free. And one case in point, there was a book that I was working on, I'm still working on actually, and no publisher really wanted it when I went out to pitch it, but I believed in it so much I went to work for free on it. And I'm like, let me just do it on spec. And spec means doing it for free and hoping that your hard work pays off. And we'll see if it does. And if not, I'm glad I got to do it because it's something I'm passionate about and enjoy doing.
I think what's also great is that there's so much access now. The old guard of things, even in the movie, like the movie business, and even with writing, like you could self-publish now. I think that opens up so many avenues for people. But used to be like, you can't do this thing because it just seems so unattainable. And now it feels like you could do anything if you really wanted to. And with social media, you could self-publish and you could promote it yourself and potentially could lead to something else. So I think that also makes it such an exciting time right now too.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, I don't think that I would have gotten in if the old guard was still around. Like, I think about that. I don't know if I could have gotten into journalism without any experience going to journalism school communications. I mean, my degree is for screenwriting. Like, I don't think I could have gone into journalism in the magazine and newspaper world. I think it had to be online. And I think that's the beauty of online, is there's so much opportunity for you to learn. And that was the thing with interviews. Interviewing is my passion. I got to keep doing interviews because I didn't aim for the highest interviews to start with. I would find names that were impressive enough on a resume, but obtainable. So like early on, I would get names like someone like a lot of comedians, because I worked for a comedy website, but I'd interview like Gilbert Gottfried. Okay, he's obtainable enough name. I see him do interviews everywhere, but he's impressive enough that someone will look and it'll give me a little legitimacy. Okay, who else? Well, Judd Apatow has a special coming out. Let me try to get him. And then it's playing that game to get your resume built up until exactly where you want to be. And I spent 3-4 years doing it just for me, and doing it because I had to do it, or I would just implode if I didn't write and interview people.
That's amazing. I think that was one of the hardest things about when we started the show, feeling like, could we get people to interview, like, but I think when you are just like, okay, who cares? I'm just gonna try. People ask all the time, like, how did you get that person? I don't know. I rolled into their DMs and they said yes.
That's it. Like, people ask me that all the time. How do you get to do this? How do you get here? And I just say, I know how I got here, in as much as I just asked. Like, how can you get to talk to these people? These people are famous. You can't get to talk to them. Well, you ask. Like, yes, it helps that I've done so much that I can point to. I don't actually know how much an agent or manager or publicist reads when I send them, like, because every email I send to pitch an idea or try to do an interview, I send with hyperlinks to a bunch of different articles. I don't know if it's being clicked on. I have no idea if they're reading my work, but I'm doing something right if they say yes. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
You're better than us, Andrew. I'm literally like, I like you. Want to be on our show?
And it's worked.
You're putting
If
links.
it works, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. You were talking about projects that you're working on. Do you have any projects you can talk about?
Yeah, I can talk about. I'm working on a book about Superbad.
I love Superbad.
That was a fun one. I'm in the final stretch of that, and yeah, I'm working on a thing with Kevin Smith right now. That's a lot of fun. And then I just had an article come out in Vanity Fair that was a passion project of mine, and that was an oral history of Conan O'Brien's first year as a late night host. I had that idea for years. I sat on it for years, waiting for 30th anniversary, and then finally it came around, and I thought the strike would make it not happen, but luckily everybody was cool waiting. Didn't have to be 30 on the dot. We did it a little later, and then Vanity Fair called me after I turned it in, and they said, "We think this can go in print," and that was always a dream. I'm like, oh my God, yes, please. So it got to go in print, and that's a dream for any writer, especially a writer like me that comes up in the online world, who always wanted to experience going to a newsstand. I live in Los Angeles, so yes, there are still a couple of newsstands around. That is still a thing out here, thankfully, because I love that so much, being able to drive up to one and just, there's my article, and open it up, and there's my name and my photos with the contributors, and that's one of the proudest moments of my life. It's getting to do that piece. So.
That's amazing. Congrats.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you mentioned never getting to be a video store employee. So we're here to make your dreams come true.
I love it. Let's do it.
As
When do I
Blockbuster.
start?
Honorary Blockbuster employee.
Yes.
Perfect.
As Blockbuster employees, we got to recommend movies. And so here's your chance to give your employee recommendations from 95 to 2005, which is our date range for the podcast.
Gotta do High Fidelity, or else, I don't know. I can't write a book about a movie and then be like, I'm not going to select that movie. So yes, High Fidelity. Let's put it on there. We can do Dogma. I would put Dogma up there.
We're about to do that movie.
We are.
Really?
Yeah, it's Jackie's birthday movie this year.
Oh wow, I love that. That is so great. Dogma is, it's, what is it, 25 this year? Yeah,
Yes.
25th anniversary. It's such a great
it
movie.
was one of I think the only movie where, like, after it finished, I just sat in the theater seat and I was just like, my brain has just been blown wide open.
Yes.
So you have
I'm
two
at
so
two.
far.
I'm at 2. Okay. Anchorman. I'm a big Anchorman fan. So. Let's do Punch Drunk Love.
Oh, that's a good one. We
Love
just
it.
did 51st Dates.
That's also a great one. Okay. We do Memento.
We have done that movie, and trying to explain a non-linear movie on a linear podcast was
It's tough. Yeah.
almost impossible.
It's a great movie, though. It's such a great movie.
Question.
Yes.
Obviously, we talked about High Fidelity, the movie, but we didn't talk about the TV show.
Okay.
Did you see it? Did
I
you
did.
like it?
I did like the show. I like the show. Now, in the book, there are some people that do talk about the show and they're not great light. But what I'll say is that the Divine Joy Randolph, is that her name?
Yes.
I think having her is the Barry character, and I can't remember what they named her. I think that was just inspired casting. I think she's such a great, charismatic performer.
Yeah.
Unrelated, if anyone has not seen The Holdovers, it was my favorite film of last year. It was so good. Such a moving, just great movie. Anyway, back to High Fidelity. Yeah, that show, there's so many aspects of it that I liked, and I really liked the fact that it was for a different generation. It allowed a different generation to see themselves in the characters that couldn't see themselves in the characters as it was in the movie or the book. So I like that opened up the opportunity for people to discovered this work and discover who Nick Hornby is.
Yeah.
And I can't say anything bad about that. I can't say anything dismissive about someone discovering this amazing author and this amazing material. I mean, do I prefer the movie? Yes, of course. Are there things in the show that were directly lifted from the movie? Yes. But I like what they were trying to go for with the show. I really do. But even if there's just one person who's now a fan of the world of High Fidelity and Nick Hornby and discovered the movie because of the show, well, then I think worth it.
Yeah. I loved the show. I mean, there were aspects that, you can always have critiques, but I think
Yes.
what I loved about it was that it shows how strong the original story is, that you could take that piece of media, change it, and then add layers to it. The fact that there was more diversity in this version where there's, women, there's Black women, and she was also a bisexual character as well. So you're seeing her love life and seeing all the different relationships she had in it. And and then the music itself, there were different.
Amazing soundtrack, yeah.
Right. Which added to the already great High Fidelity movie soundtrack. So I was a little bummed that they canceled it because I liked it. I thought it was good. And I hope it continues to live on. I hope that, like you said, more people get to see High Fidelity. And I hope that people get to read your book and really fall even more in love with the movie. And there's a High Fidelity resurgence. I know it's become a cult classic, but like you said, if newer generations can be inspired to read and see the movie, that would be great.
Absolutely. I've always felt that way. It doesn't matter how you get to a place as long as you get there. For the last decade, I've been the historian for Andy Kaufman. I worked with the Andy Kaufman estate, and I had talked to the family about the movie Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey and my thoughts on it. And that was how I got to discover Andy, actually, was through Man on the Moon. I got to know so many of the facets about Andy beyond Man on the Moon. But what I've always said is, yes, it's got a lot of imperfections. But if that movie can introduce someone to Andy like it did for me, then it was worth it.
Before we let you go, we definitely want everyone to follow you, find out how they can connect with you on socials. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes, I'm at Andrew L. Buss on Twitter, Instagram, or X and Instagram. Never gonna get used to that.
If you guys have any questions for Andrew, or if you have any commentary about what we talked about today, make sure that you hit us up on social media at No More Late Fees, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and Threads. Make sure that you go check out Andrew's book. It is available for you to get a copy on Amazon. We'll put a link in the show notes, so make sure you look for that. And Andrew, again, thank you so much for joining us. We had so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
And as always, be kind and